The window into soul. Don't believe us about the soul. Learn from your own personal experiences with the soul of good and evil. Become aware of how the soul operates by studying it. For being able to experience how the soul operates leads to self-reflection and introspection, which leads to catching the soul in action and self-realization. We are a mind living inside a human mammal, a Homo sapiens sapien, and we have identified ourselves with this creature through the contents of the soul, unaware of our individuality as the mind. As we move through life, various memories are being delivered to our mind from the soul, causing us to think, speak, and act in specific ways. We never stop to think that we are not in full control of our thoughts and actions, and yet we sometimes wonder why we think, speak, and do the things we do. But such thoughts quickly fade. We believe we are in full control of our life, making the decisions and choices all on our own. But what you're about to discover is something quite different. We have been educated by church and state, and therefore, for the most part, we have a conditioned free will, the contents of the soul, what we have been taught, directing our mind. For example, you have been reading these teachings of Jesus and agreeing and disagreeing based upon your previous education, thereby at best generating a confused and a limited understanding, just like reading a new technical book for the first time on a new subject. However, once you start to apply these teachings to yourself, a clearer understanding becomes apparent. The soul is an entity with great power and ability. It functions in connection with the human brain and the 5 physical senses of the human body to create an experience for the mind. As such, the soul generates an energy field around and interpenetrating the human form. Some call this an aura. Through this symbiotic relationship of the soul with the human form, the mind becomes identified with the human container, and this world is all it sees. Whether we are awake or asleep, we are identified with this world and the contents of soul, to which we add daily through the human experience. Next, we will not only reveal how it all works, but give you the ability to prove it to yourself. The soul operates using light and sound to produce a virtual reality and create emotional attachments to those virtual realities. The light is the substance used to form and illuminate the images, while the sound is the essence used to animate the images and provide the soundtracks, voice, music, noise. We experience these stage and screen productions in the dream state, while in the waking state we experience talking to ourselves, even arguing mentally with this imagery coming from soul. And of course, daydreaming. Up until today, you have just experienced it as a part of life. Now we hope you are thinking about this subtle operation of soul. All thoughts are but collections of images strung together and or superimposed upon each other. Yes, international and intercultural, completely separate from language, images are grouped together and arranged in specific orders to form ideas, ideals, attitudes, opinions, beliefs, etc. A person's collective imagery underlies their every thought, word, and action. These stored images in the soul form the basis of all our thoughts, feelings, emotions, words, and actions. They are in the soul, and they are guiding us through life, moment to moment, forming our attitudes, opinions, desires, belief systems, and habits. Even supernatural experiences are just the generated phenomena created by the soul using the light and sound of its stored imagery. This is a tough pill to swallow for those who have had the amazing, belief-altering experience of soul's white light. Unfortunately, those amazing, wonderful, emotional, and oh-so-real experiences were all orchestrated by soul to deceive and lead you astray. You went nowhere. You saw nothing real. The soul is all-powerful and uses its imagery and energy to produce fantastic virtual realities, whatever it takes to keep us from the truth and under its control. The soul can create anything from seeing Jesus, Muhammad, fairies, elves, angels, gods, goddesses, saints, saviors, ascended masters, demons, devils, ghosts, aliens, UFOs, unicorn-winged horses, including images of God or the voice of God, whatever it takes to deceive us. Every deception from heaven to hell and in between is awaiting the seeker on soul's path. This phenomena generated by soul can be seen in the dream state as one drifts off to sleep, or in the twilight state of consciousness just before waking in the morning, or during passive meditation or active meditation. On rare occasions, when the conditions are just right, soul's imagery can appear to be projected externally in front of you like a mirage in a desert. One just can't believe that there could be anything better than the white light experiences generated by soul. The following reference material has been provided to show this information is not new. Long ago, researchers such as Jung, Freud, Rampe, Gatz, and others have found the similar findings. These are just a few of the examples of the observations and conclusions discovered by these researchers. You see, this information about the soul and how it works is not new. It's just not widely taught or publicized. Gatz is reported as saying, visual and auditory sensory experiences apparently are placed in storage as if they had been permanently recorded on sound film. Freud says, it is possible for thought processes to become conscious through a revision to visual residues. Thinking in pictures approximates more closely to unconscious processes than does thinking in words, and is unquestionably older than the latter, both ontogenetically and phylogenetically. According to Jung, the years I spent pursuing my inner images were the most important in my life. And again, Sirlot, the physiological mechanism that transforms energy is the symbol. The true basis of symbolism is the correspondence linking together all orders of reality, binding them one to the other, and consequently extending from the natural order as a whole to the supernatural order. By virtue of this correspondence, the whole of nature is but a symbol, its true significance becoming apparent when it is seen as a pointer to supernatural or metaphysical truths. And again we have by Vernon. In dreams and half-dreaming states, the mind is filled with a throng of images and fantasies. It is here in the natural tendencies and predilections of living stuff comes to expression. More than all, I think, here the organizing power of life fashions into orderly patterns the floating fantasies of unconscious mind. Among the throng of random images and ideas, the unconscious mind rejects certain combinations as unimportant or incomparable, but it sees the significance of others. By this means, order intellectual, aesthetic, or spiritual is distinguished from randomness. One must recognize the operation of the unconscious of such of an organizing factor, for chance alone is not creative. Just as the organism pulls together random, formless stuff into the patterned system of structure and function in the body, so the unconscious mind seems to select and arrange and correlate these ideas and images into a pattern. The resemblance between the two processes are close. The concept is worth considering that the organizing power of life, manifest in mind as well as in body, for the two are hardly separable, is the truly creative element. Creativity thus becomes an attribute of life. And Malthus, the creative mechanism within you is impersonal. It will work automatically and impersonally to achieve goals of success and happiness, or unhappiness and failure, depending upon the goals which you yourself set for it. Present it with success goals, and it will function as a success mechanism. Present it with negative goals, and it operates just as impersonally and just as faithfully as a failure mechanism. Like any other servo mechanism, it must have a clear-cut goal, objective, or problem to work upon. The goals that our own creative mechanism seeks to achieve are mental images or mental pictures which we create by the use of the imagination. And Horowitz, visualization increases when a person enters a state of directionalist thought. And Malthus again. All servo mechanisms achieve a goal by negative feedback or by going forward, making mistakes, and immediately correcting cause. Further learning and continuous success is accomplished by forgetting the past errors and remembering the successful response so it can be imitated. You must learn to trust your creative mechanism to do its work and to not jam it by becoming too concerned or too anxious as to whether it will work or not, or by attempting to force it by too much conscious effort. You must let it work, rather than trying to make it work. This trust is necessary because your creative mechanism operates below the level of consciousness. And Jung again. This creativity aspect of the psychic nucleus can come into play only when the ego gets rid of all purposive and wishful aims and tries to get to a deeper, more basic form of existence. The ego must be able to listen attentively and to give itself without any further design or purpose to that inner urge towards growth. Orenstern. The mystic experience, brought about by concentrative meditation, deatomization exercises, and other techniques, intend to alter ordinary linear consciousness, is then a shift from that normal analytical world containing separate, discrete objects and persons to a second mode, an experience of unity, a mode of intuition. This experience is outside the province of language and rationality. And again by Wilhelm. Every event in the visible world is the effect of an image, that is, of an idea in the unseen world. Accordingly, everything that happens on earth is only a reproduction of an event in a world beyond our sense perception. As regards its occurrence in time, it is later than the supersensitive event. The holy men and sages who are in contact with those higher spheres have access to these ideas through direct intuition and are therefore able to intervene decisively in events in the world. Thus, man is linked with heaven, the super-sensitive world of ideas, and with earth, the natural world of visible things, to form with these a trinity of the primordial powers. Place all your faith in your subconscious mind. Don't worry about the how or the when. Relax and mentally visualize a screen, 1 inch by 2 inches, right between your eyes. As soon as the screen appears clear before your vision, inject into the screen the image of what you want. Just ask for whatever your heart desires and have faith. Leave everything else to the subconscious. It's amazing the way it has of working out your problems and bringing about your desires. A success is experience. Your powers will likewise increase. And by Jung again, translate the emotions into images. That is to say, to find the images which were concealed in the emotions. Ostrander. The ability to visualize easily, vividly, is key, according to the Soviets, in the successful transmission of telepathy. And Rampa. First, you will be inclined to put it down to imagination, but it is not imagination, but reality. If you dismiss it as idle imagination, you will dismiss telepathy. And Jung. Knowledge does not enrich us, it removes us more and more from the mythic world in which we were once at home by right of birth. How we experience life is based upon the arranged imagery stored in the soul. Life is but the effect of a continuum of this fate-producing imagery moving us forward to a specific destiny. This imagery is the cause, and how we experience life is the effect. So lifelike are these images that, as they flow into our mind, we become upset, mad, angry, laugh, or become sad all over again, just as if we were having the original experience. We clench our fists, grit our teeth, the muscles tense up, and the soul employs its imagination to add to the original experience to make it more controlling in the future. We think it is doing us the thinking and the imagining, but we are just watching the soul at work with its imagery. What we are attempting to explain is the process of soul, whereby we are constantly being stimulated internally and externally to relive and reenact memories stored in the soul all day long, daydreaming, looking around at the people around you, daydreaming. Better still, watch your own behavior. As one looks deeper into how the soul operates, we find that, try as we might, we just can't stop these old memories from surfacing and affecting the way we feel, think, speak, and act. Why? Because our mind has been conditioned over many years to operate in this way. Try it right now. See how long you can remain focused in the now before you're pulled away into a thought of the soul. Since the soul has been designed to operate in this way, to stop the soul from managing our mind, we are going to have to become aware and stop the chatter. We are going to have to make some changes in our understanding, and it's not going to be easy or fast. We have been educated with specific political, social, and religious imagery. The more time we devote to certain personal belief systems, the stronger mental and emotional identifications and attachments we form with those beliefs. They become our favorite images and what we live our life by. Like narcissists, we are in love with our own imagery. The stronger the mental and emotional bonds, the greater influence and control they have over our lives. We encounter each experience in life based upon this stored imagery, forming our likes, dislikes, loves, hates, fears, courage, etc. Therefore, understanding how the soul operates, using this imagery to move us through life on a moment-to-moment basis, comes not only from reading about it, but from the experience of looking for this imagery in our life and observing it in the lives of those around us. Seeing how the soul operates is an opportunity for each one of us to understand just how this imagery relates to our present belief systems, and thus our ability to make changes to those long-held, most cherished beliefs, especially the ones that may not be working out for our betterment. Once we start to experience the soul managing our thoughts and behavior, we can then begin to understand what it is we must do to start the process of retaking control back from soul. For seeing the imagery of soul leads to introspection, which leads to catching soul in the act of controlling us, which leads to self-realization, which leads to wanting to be free from soul's control. So, how can we see these images of soul? And the answer is, through the window of the soul. We will look out the window and onto the film clips of the soul to see what is being transmitted for us to subconsciously see. The window is located between the two eyebrows in the center of the forehead. Some call it the eye single. The film clips appear out there in the blackness, about 1.5 feet away as one looks through the window of soul. Awake or asleep, the imagery of soul constantly parades across this space for the mind to see and identify with. The next time you are daydreaming, catch yourself and see where your attention is focused, even though your eyes may be staring elsewhere. Or when you have searched the memory, feel your attention moving up to the window. Or the next time you're having a conversation with someone and they have to search their memory to answer the question, watch their eyes move up as their attention shifts to the window. As the mind looks through the window in the forehead, an image forms in the darkness. As the mind views the image, it becomes animated and begins to play out like a movie on a screen in a theater. As the mind identifies with the film clip, it is pulled into this sequence of holographic images and becomes a participant in the soul's virtual reality. The holographic movie continues to run, with us participating, until we are startled, frightened, lose interest, or some external stimuli brings us back into the physical body, just like in the dream during sleep, or the daydream when we are in a light trance. Our life's experience have already constructed thousands of these holographic movies, while soul's imagination has created thousands more to entertain and control us. At any given moment, several of these film clips are competing for our attention, pulling us into a daydream. The process is so subtle, it goes unnoticed, and by adulthood, we have become so habituated by the process that we think, speak, and act according to these stored film clips of habits, opinions, attitudes, likes, dislikes, beliefs, and so on. Uttering cliches and rehearsed lines, we live a semi-automated, acting and reacting routinely without a second thought as to why we are like we are or why we do what we do. It's all quite natural and normal to us. On a rare occasion, there is that moment when we think to ourselves, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? But soul quickly redirects our thinking away from such thoughts, usually with some busy activity or convincing rationalization like, it's just a coincidence. The soul works on us from the moment we are born, with a massive attack on us as adolescents, and finally quickening control with the help of those already in adulthood. It's no wonder children don't like to be around adults. Adults are so superficial, lifeless, automated, and unnatural, they are no longer childlike. As an adult, the process begins immediately when the soul receives some external or internal stimulation. The process takes place at the speed of light. As the stimulus lights up one image, other connected and supporting images are lit up and arranged into a film clip which appears out there in front of us on the screen of the window for the mind to see. It all takes place instantly, so fast and subtly that we don't notice the process. This operation of the soul goes on forever, unnoticed, unless someone educates us and we learn how to experience the process. So eventually we can take control of it and put a stop to soul controlling us. We really need to educate ourselves, the mind, through direct first-hand experience with this process. For by doing so, we will begin the awakening and the realization of our individuality as the mind, separate from the soul and its human container. Once we can prove it to ourselves through actual personal experience, not by reading about it, the awakening can begin. So learning how to see the imagery through the window of the soul is the most important to the understanding of ourself, the mind, and the soul and how it controls us. There is a technique one can use to experience the imagery through the window of the soul, and the technique begins by imagining an image outside the window, thus providing the stimuli for soul, and then you pretend to move out through the window and into that image, whereby it engulfs you in its virtual reality, and the holographic film clip plays out with you inside. The success of the technique depends upon your ability to pretend, and nothing else. All you have to do is pretend to see the image on the outside of the window. Next, you pretend to move through the window and into the image. Then you pretend what is happening. You have to do this without thinking. Just let things develop. Go with the flow. Just pretend like the little child does with their imaginary friend, talking, listening, and acting out with their imaginary friend. The child doesn't question or wonder whether there is an imaginary friend. The friend is just there and playing along with them. If you are startled or frightened by what you experience, then just like the daydream state, you will come out of it. So there's nothing to fear. If you are questioning, thinking about, analyzing, or wondering why nothing has happened, you will never get anywhere. Being absent of thought and pretending your way out and into the film clip brings success. At some point, you don't try to catch it or see it. The pretending will be taken over by the actual experience, and you'll be going with the flow inside soul's virtual reality film clip. Again, imagine an image. Pretend to see it out there on the other side of the window. Pretend to move out and into the image. Pretend how things are unfolding until it takes over, and then go with the flow as the pretending comes to life. You do it all the time when you're daydreaming about something from the past, as soul has pulled you into its film clip. The only difference is this time you are providing the stimuli to trigger soul's response. Now let's trigger and activate soul's stored imagery with respect to past lives and experience it consciously as a mind. The more often you practice the technique, the sooner you will get results, including the lucid, white light experiences of soul. Those with less analytical minds will find it easier. Children can do it naturally. Now you know of the spiritual deception as taught by masters and spiritual organizations as out-of-body experience, astral travel, soul travel, etc. Accessing your past lives by viewing your Akashic record book on a so-called higher realm. It's simply accessing the imagery of soul, but to the uneducated, it's a life-changing, beautiful, mystical experience, especially if the experience comes with a lucid white light experience. Many wondrous experiences are awaiting the unsuspecting person with the white light of soul. You can't imagine anything more beautiful. It must be heaven. It's not. The Akashic record book is simply your soul. Karma, imagery of cause and effect, is just the fate-producing film clips of soul which creates and controls our destiny. Life's experience adding to and altering this karmic imagery. Now let us take a visit to your Akashic record book and see one of your so-called past lives. Praise be to the God of the living for the love of forgiveness in providing us infidels with a means to redeem ourselves and return home. Below is a sketch of the Temple of Learning on the Soul Realm, where you will find your Akashic record book. You need to look at this visual so you can place it on the viewing screen. Remember, you need not be able to see this image clearly or lucidly on the viewing screen for the technique to work. The moment you first looked at this picture, it was stored in soul. You just need to pretend to visualize it, to call it up out of soul and onto the viewing screen. Now, Find a chair in a quiet area of your place. Sit up straight and get comfortable. Close your eyes gently and relax from the tips of your toes to the top of your head. Squirm around and wriggle in your chair until you are comfortable and relaxed. Take a couple of deep breaths to release any residual stress and focus your attention out onto the viewing screen and pretend to visualize the image of the Temple of Learning. Now pretend that you fly out towards the Temple of Learning and in through the doorway at the front. Inside you see what looks like a pulpit straight ahead, down a long aisle. Pretend you fly down the aisle to the pulpit where you see a book open on the pulpit. This is your Akashic record book, and you may or may not be able to read it or see anything on the open pages. So, next pretend to dive into one of the 2 pages which are open before you, and a past life will begin to unfold as long as you don't think about whether it's happening or not. As long as you don't start thinking about and analyzing what's happening, and as long as you don't try to control or direct the scene, you will start to see a scene unfolding. Just watch like you would a movie or a show and go with the flow like the daydream. Be patient. When you're finished, just open your eyes. Above all, don't be concerned if you are not having lucid visuals like in the dream state. The lucid visual is the exception and not the norm. Most people just see it happening in the twilight state as they are unable to fully penetrate the dark void. You see like you would your home if you walked around in your home at night with all the lights off. What's important is learning about the soul and how it operates. Like any skill in life, you master that skill and become proficient by practice, practice, and more practice, not by knowing the information or instructions in a book. It's not easy, or everyone would be doing it, and because it's not easy, few people can persist long enough to make it work. It takes a lot of resolve to overcome the soul's whisperings. It doesn't work. I can't do it. Just more nonsense. Just go to the Temple of Learning and fly inside to your book on the pulpit without any thoughts of who, what, when, where, why, or how, without any questioning. Don't have any expectations about what you should or shouldn't be experiencing. After all, why would you have any expectations? You've never done this before, so how could you expect anything? Don't even consider, am I there yet? Just go and do it without any thought. Don't be concerned about how the technique works. Just know that it does work and do it. Just be there like a little child pretending in the moment and not thinking about whether it's real or not, but just making it happen by pretending. Just be like the little child who would pretend she or he is flying up and out of the body and out through the window into the Temple of Learning, through the front door and up to the pulpit and into one of the 2 pages of the open book, and then going with the scene as it unfolds. Just one thought and you're instantly back in the physical body. Keep thinking instead of pretending and doing, and you'll never get out through the window of the soul. Remember, when you are daydreaming about something, soul has easily pulled you out into the screen where you're focused on what it wants you to think about to the exclusion of everything else going on around you. Look around at the people in life daydreaming. Look around at the people in life daydreaming, self-hypnotized, to the exclusion of their surroundings. These are the teachings of Jesus, which have been given to us to help us to understand who we are, where we are, and what is going on. These teachings of Jesus are meant to aid us in our lives here in the human experience and prepare us for the return home. Peace be unto you all. Please click here to subscribe and watch this next video, or watch this next video. Thank you.